Another video and yet another muscle car. The GTO is a legendary muscle car, and it was equipped with one of the largest engines available at the time, as well as a wonderful 4-speed transmission. The automobile was well received, and it revolutionized the way people thought about muscle cars today. Today, we're going to be looking at the 1964 Pontiac GTO. And as usual, we'll be looking at everything from engines to bodywork and so on. The Pontiac GTO is a vehicle that was produced by Pontiac in the United States from 1963 to 1974 for the 1964 to 1974 model years, and by GM's Australian affiliate Holden for the 2004 and 2006 model years. In the 1960s, the first model of the GTO is credited by popularizing the muscle car sector. Some say the Pontiac GTO originated the trend, but all four American automakers now offer a choice of competing versions. The GTO was a well-known car in 1964, yet it was initially only available as a trim level on the Pontiac Lemans and Tempest. Due to overwhelming demand, General Motors only made the GTO to a full production car after 1964. The Ferrari 250 GTO, a classic Italian race car, inspired the GTO designation. It's an Italian acronym for Gran Turismo Omologato, Grand Tourer homologated, which implies that it's officially certified for Grand Tourer racing. Despite this, the Pontiac GTO was never officially designated as a Grand Tourer race car. The vehicle identifying number, VIN, for the 1964 GTO began with 82, whereas the VIN for the 1965 GTO began with 237. From 1966 through 1971, the GTO was a different model, VIN 242. For the 1972 and 1973 Intermediate Le Mans, it was once again an optional package. The GTO was available as an optional trim package on the compact-size Ventura in 1974. In 1968, the GTO was named the Motor Trend Car of the Year. The GTO was reintroduced as a captive import for Pontiac from 2004 to 2006, a left-hand drive version of the Holden Monaro, which was itself a coupe derivative of the Holden Commodoro. With a total of 32,450 units built for the general public, the quantity of 1964 Pontiac GTOs on the road today is extremely limited, and restoring one would require a thorough restoration plan. In the years leading up to the manufacturing of the 1964 Pontiac GTO, GM was entangled in antitrust lawsuits as its sales were outpacing those of the other production lines, gaining nearly as much market share as all of the other manufacturers combined. The competition was not happy, and the Department of Justice was drawn in by GM's 53% market share in the automobile business. GM was quickly faced with difficult choices about its products and sales techniques. One of the most noteworthy moves they made was to prohibit their engagement in racing in 1963, thus ending support for racing across all of their brands. As a result of this action, Pontiac began to focus on street performance vehicles. Given GM's unwritten policy of keeping engines in intermediate cars to a maximum size of 330 CI, the Pontiac GTO was considered as going against the grain. The 389 CI engine, which was available as an optional package to the public, received extraordinary public support, with the 64 Pontiac lineup winning Motor Trend's Car of the Year award in 1965. The February 1965 issue of Motor Trend magazine examined the Pontiac's achievements from a variety of perspectives, including marketing, engineering, design, performance, and road tests. The Pontiac GTO had arrived on the scene. The first GTO was created by cramming a 325 horsepower V8 into Pontiac lemans, a major risk because nothing with that much power was designed for the track, but it paid off handsomely. The GTO was powered by a 6.5-liter V8 engine with 325 horsepower. This may not look like much in today's standards, but nearly 5 decades ago, this engine was the genuine deal. It had a lot of raw power and helped the muscle car achieve incredible performance. The entire point of the GTO was to cram a huge engine into a medium car. On the streets, driving was both comfortable and enjoyable. Through its incredible 4-speed transmission, power was transferred to the rear wheels. In comparison to a typical modern transmission, the gearbox had a pretty lengthy throw and felt a little sluggish. The pedal travel was also quite long, in addition to the long gear. Surprisingly, the GTO could sprint from 0 to 60 miles per hour in less than 5.7 seconds. The 1964 Pontiac GTO boasts a classic muscle car appearance that has held up nicely over time. The design is as retro as possible, with clean and basic lines, no extra cuts and creases in the body. The car was available in both a hardtop and a convertible version. The convertible adds a whole new level of pleasure to the GTO by allowing the driver and passengers to hear the V8's rumble and exhaust sound even more clearly. The 1964 GTO is notable for a number of features, including the fact that it's the only model year with horizontally placed headlights. The configuration was a quad halogen with 2 bulbs on each end of the car, giving it a highly aggressive stance. The bonnet had 2 massive hood scoops that solely served to keep the engine cooler. The bumpers were chromed, as were many cars at the time, and they looked fantastic. The middle of the front grille was divided into 2 rectangular parts, which is a traditional GTO design language. The side-mounted exhaust tips were installed on the rear fenders. These exhausts not only looked excellent, but they also sounded great. The enormous length of this vehicle was made obvious from the side perspective of the car. This car was 203 inches in length and sat on a 115-inch wheelbase. The car's GTO insignia was also located on the rear fenders. The taillights had a delicate finish, as did the reversing lights, which were positioned in the bumpers and were completely distinct from the rest of the taillights. And the rear bumpers featured chrome bumpers with Pontiac letters in the center. Classic automobiles' interiors, such as the 1964 Pontiac GTO, are testaments to how far the automotive industry has progressed in terms of technology. The oil pressure gauge, speedometer, RPM gauge, and tachometer are all housed in 4 instrument pods on the dashboard. The steering wheel is a classic 4-spoke design with aluminum highlights and walnut accents. The headlights were controlled by 2 switches on the inside, and the convertible trim even included a power-operated top, which was groundbreaking technology in 1964. The car comes equipped with a modest temperature control system and retro-looking radio. The seats were constructed entirely of leather and were extremely comfortable for both the front and back passengers. The GTO could easily transport 4 persons and their stuff. The GTO was only made in small numbers, and finding one in running condition is like finding a needle in a haystack. A flawless 1964 Pontiac GTO is unquestionably a timeless specimen of beauty. The vehicle's power may appear to be less than that of modern-day performance automobiles, and its fuel economy is best avoided, but its driving pleasure and the thrill remain unrivaled to this day. The 1964 Pontiac GTO is a true muscle car icon that will go on in perpetuity. You'll definitely find it hard to find a 1964 Pontiac GTO to buy today, but the good news is that GM still sells parts for this car today. However, it will cost you a lot of money. Rather than chasing the uncommon 421 CI engine, a good compromise would be to go with the 389 CI, which has been the standard for so long that parts are still available. The tri-power version is also widely available, and a lot of shops will be able to set it up for you comfortable. Non-engine parts did not change much between the 1964 and 1970 muscle car eras. and parts for the 1964 Pontiac GTO are mainly interchangeable with those from subsequent versions. So, finding electronic and mechanical parts for the GTO will not be difficult. So then, what do we think the American muscle car OG should be clocked at? A decent condition 1964 Pontiac GTO should demand a mean $35,000 at the very least, given the engineering love that has gone into it, the rich history surrounding its manufacturing, and the bragging rights it bears. This will cover the restoration costs, and you'll be cruising down the street like it's the 1960s in no time. However, if you want a perfect GTO, you'll have to go a little deeper. Due to component customization and low mileage, some websites showcase 64 Pontiac GTOs that cost well over $90,000. What do you think about this automobile? Let us know down in the comments section.